Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video we'll be learning how to make this beautiful princess dart blouse with a stylish neckline and an asymmetric hemline. If this looks like what you want to learn how to make, then you want to keep watching this video to the end, and let's get started. So guys, before we begin, I'm going to urge you to watch this tutorial to the end, and that's because in this particular tutorial I'm going to be sharing tips on how to achieve the hourglass blouses you see online. Okay, you see those trendy blouses online that have those curvy hourglass shape. I'm going to share tips on how you can achieve that on your blouse. So do well to watch this video to the end, and let's get started. So guys, to begin, I've already gone ahead to mark my measurements, and this is the chest line, this is the bust point, this is the waist under bust, and then this is the waist line, and then this part is going to serve as our shoulder line. Okay, so for the chest line I'm working with is 9 inches. I mark that down. The bust point I'm working with is 11. The under bust I'm working with is 15, and then the waistline I'm working with, I'm using 19 inches. Okay, and I'll be explaining that in the course of the video why I'm using 19 inches. Okay, remember this is the front. Okay, we are starting with the front, and then for the top length I'm using 25 inches. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to mark the shoulder measurement I'm working with, and the shoulder measurement I'm working with is 16 divided by 2 is 8. I'll be marking that down on the shoulder line. After marking the shoulder measurement, I'm going to be taking the neck width I'm using for this tutorial, and the neck width I'm using is 3 inches. So I'll go ahead and mark that down. The reason why I'm using 3 inches is because I don't want this to be too wide. This neckline is it's going to be like a Queen Anne neckline, and you don't want it too wide. Okay, if it's too wide, it's not going to give that shape. Okay, so I'm using 3 inches for the neck width, and then on this point I'm going to come down by 1 inch. Okay, for the shoulder slope, and then I'm going to slope that from this point to this point. So I'm also going to mark the shoulder measurement divided by 2 on the chest line as well. I'm going to mark that down, and then I'm going to connect from this point all the way to this point. Okay, so guys, after doing that, the next thing I'm going to do is to mark the nipple to nipple measurement I'm working with divided by 2. I'm going to be marking that on the bust point, on the waistline, and also on the top length. Okay, so you can just go ahead to mark it. I'm just going to mark on the bust point here like this. I'm using 4.25. Okay, so you can measure your clients or you measure yourself and you know how many you are using, but for this particular project the nipple to nipple measurement I'm working with is 4.25. So I'm going to mark that down here, and then I'm also going to mark that on the top length as well. Then I'm going to use my rule to connect it. So guys, after that, the next thing I'm going to do is to work on the front armhole. Okay, and for this project the bust measurement I'm working with is 39. So I'm going to divide 39 by 4. Okay, and then whatever it gives me, I'm going to place that on this point. So 39 by 4 gives me 9.75. So I'm going to mark that here, and then I'm going to measure what I have here, which is 8. Okay, I'm going to divide this by 2, and then I'm going to go in on this point by half of an inch as we always do, and then I'm going to connect my armhole curve. Okay, so guys, as you can see, I've created the front armhole, and then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to measure what I have. Okay, on this line, just go ahead to measure yours. I got about 9.25. I'm going to divide that by 2. Okay, and it's going to give me about 4 Okay, I have 4 points, almost 4.75. I'm going to mark that on the line. Okay, so this is where it stops. I'm going to mark this point. Okay, and then I'm going to be connecting from this point all the way to the bust point. So guys, for the darts, I'll be taking that on the under bust, okay, and also on the top length. I'll be using 0.75 inches on this center front, okay, and then on the side front I'll be using 2 inches. So this totally depends on the size you are working with, okay. So if you are working with a smaller size, you can do half inch on the center front, and then you can do 2 inches on the side or 1.5 inches on the side. But I'm using 0.75 on the center front side of the dart, and then 2 inches on the front side of the dart, because I'm working with a bigger size. The person is busty, that's why I'm using this. Okay, so this is going to create more room for the bust to sit. Next thing I'm going to do is to connect my points. Okay, so as you can see, this is how it looks. And then on the bust line, on this dart leg, I'm going to come down by 1 inch, and then I'm going to connect this to this point and this to this point as well. So guys, this is how it looks after taking the dart. The next thing I'm going to do is to come down on this point by half of an inch, okay, and then go up by half of an inch as well. So now I'm going to connect this into this line, okay, back into this line using my rule. So guys, this is how it looks after connecting. The next thing I'm going to do is to go up on this side. Okay, I'm going to be going up by 1 inch. I'll use 1.5. You can do 1 inch. Okay, we are just trying to replace the dart we took. Okay, so it's not going to be short on the side when you are joining it. I'm going to be using 1.5 inches. Okay, if I get excess while joining, I'm just going to trim this off. So as you can see, I placed my tape slanted like this. Okay, then I mark the 1.5 inches, and then I'm just going to connect that back into the line. So guys, after that, I'm still going to replace 1 inch on this side as well. Okay, and then I'm going to create the new armhole for this blouse. So this is a new armhole for the blouse. We are going to be cutting this part off. Okay, and we're also going to be cutting this part off as well. So guys, the next thing we are going to do now is to take our body measurements, and I already marked the bust measurements I'm working with on this point. So I'm going to be marking the waist measurement, okay, on the waistline, and the waist measurement I'm working with is 30. So if you are making a corset blouse or a bustier that you are going to add lacing to it, or even if you are adding zip and you want it snatched, make sure you take out something from the waist measurement. Okay, so I'm adding zip to this, and I don't want to make it too snatched. Okay, and the waist measurement I'm working with is 30. I'm going to be working with 29 inches, okay, for this. But if you want your snatched, you can go ahead to take out 2 inches, okay, from your waist measurement. So I'm going to be working with 29. I'm going to divide 29 by 4, and then I'm going to mark whatever I get here. Okay, 29 divided by 4. I'm going to mark that down, and then I'm going to replace this dart here. This is about 2.75 inches. I'm just going to replace that here like so. Okay, and the next thing I'm going to do is to take the hip measurement I'm working with divided by 4, and the hip measurement I'm working with is 40. I'm going to mark that down here as well, and then I'm going to replace the dart, which is still 2.75, on this point as well. So guys, after that I'm just going to connect from this point to this point, and then from this point to this point. Okay, so guys, the next thing to do is to cut this out. And this is how it looks after cutting out. The next thing we're going to do is to add that to the front. Okay, we're going to be adding bust that to this front piece, and to achieve that we're just going to come down on this bust line. Okay, this is the bust line. You're going to come down by 1 inch, and then connect it with a slant line back into the bust point like so. Okay, and then what I'm going to do next is to cut this out. I'm not going to be cutting it out like cut out. I'm just going to cut up to this point, and then we are just going to close this up. Okay, so this is how it's going to look like. So if you take note, you notice that I did not add sewing allowance to my pieces. I'll be doing that while cutting on the fabric. Okay, so if you have a tape, you can hold this down with a tape, or you use your pin to secure it. Okay, and just hold it down. So we are going to be setting this front aside. Okay, and we are going to work on the back before we come and work on the front neckline. So guys, for the back is very easy to cut. Okay, so we only need this line. We only need the shoulder, the chest line, the waistline, and then the blouse length. And so if you're adding zipper to yours, make sure to add your zip allowance. Okay, so I'll be adding zipper to this, and then I'm going to go ahead to mark my zip allowance, and I'll be using 2 inches for that. So guys, this is going to be the zip allowance. Okay, and then I went ahead to mark the chest line I'm working with, which is 9 inches, and then for the waist of the back we are going to use 18 inches. We used 19 inches for the front, but we are going to use 18 inches for the back. Okay, why we are doing this is so that the front and the back is going to align on the side, and that's also because your front half length is usually longer than your back half length. So I'm going to be placing the front on this after cutting, so you guys can see what I mean by that. So most people fail to understand this. Okay, and then afterwards they come and say they try to recreate it, and they discover that the front and the back did not align. So please make sure you watch tutorials to the end so you understand how it is done. So the next thing I'm going to do is to mark the shoulder measurement I'm working with, and the shoulder measurement I'm working with is 8 inches. I'm going to mark that here, and then as usual come down by 1 inch for the shoulder slope, and then mark 3 inches for the neck width, the same way we did for the front. and then come here on the chest line and also mark the shoulder measurement divided by 2, which is 8, and then connect. And then connect this loop as well. So for the back neck depth, we're going to be using 1.5 inches. You can use 2 inches, okay? It doesn't have to be too deep. So I'm just going to connect that into the neckline like so, okay? So that's the back neck depth. The next thing I'm going to do is to mark the bust measurement divided by 4, okay? I'll mark that here. And then I'm going to mark the nipple to nipple measurement I'm working with, which is 4.25. I'll be marking that on this line, and I'll also be marking that on this line as well. The next thing I'm going to do is to connect. So guys, after this, I'm going to come down on the chest line here on this start point by 1 inch, okay? And then on the waistline here, I'm going to mark ½ inch inwards here, and then ½ inch here as well, okay? And then I'm just going to connect that into this point. And then I'm also going to connect it back into the dot line on the top length. So guys, if you're I marked 25 inches for the front top length, and for this I marked 24 inches. That's because I reduced the waist as well, and I did that so that it's going to align on the side. So please do not forget that, and that is why I said you should not skip any part of this video, as every part is as important. So the next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to create my back armhole curve. And then I'm going to come down on this point, okay? So you can also measure what you have here, divided by 2. So what I have here is 8 divided by 2 is 4. I can just mark 4 here, okay? And then just connect it as well. So guys, on the waist, I'm going to mark the waist measurement I'm working with divided by 4, okay? And then I'm going to mark that here. And then on the hip as well, I'm going to mark the hip measurement I'm working with divided by 4. Sorry guys, they took the light, so we just have to manage with what we have. So I'm going to mark here, I'm going to mark the hip measurement divided by 4, which is 10, okay? So on this waist here, I'm going to replace this dot of 1 inch, and then I'm going to connect from this point to this point, okay? And then from this point to this point as well. If you are going to add sleeves to your blouse, you can always maintain the armhole, okay? You can maintain your armhole measurement, but if you're not adding sleeves, please make sure to go up by 0.75, okay? So that your bust does not show at the sides. So you go up by 0.75 and then you connect it. For this particular blouse, you have to also do this, okay, for both front and the back if you are making the same sleeve, and that's because the sleeve is a cuff sleeve and it's not going to come down, okay? So you have to go up, okay? And I explained this in details in my previous video. Please do well to check it out. So guys, the next thing I'm going to do is to cut this out. So guys, for the front neckline, okay, for the front neckline, we're going to be coming down by 8.5. Okay, that's going to be the neck depth for this. So it totally depends on how deep you want yours to be. Okay, I'm using 8.5 for this particular person, and then I'm going to come down on this side. I'm going to come down by 5.5 inches. Okay, so you can just connect this with a straight line to serve as a guideline. So on this 5.5 inches, I'm going to be going in by 2.5 inches. So from this point, I'm going to be connecting it into the neckline. So for the shape on the neckline, I'm just going to be marking about 1.5 inches, okay, in a slant form like so. Then I'm going to connect it like this, okay, and then bring it back like this, okay, and then connect it into the neckline. So guys, this is it, okay, just create that shape, okay, bring it back this way and then connect it into your neck depth. So you can see that our shape is out, and you can see how beautiful it looks. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is to cut this out. So guys, you can now see that our neckline is out, and you can see how beautiful it looks. So if there's any part of this video that you don't understand, please do not forget to drop your questions in the comments, as I will be there to reply to all your questions. Okay, so guys, for this front as well, I'm going to be going up by 0.75 inches on the armhole, the same way we did for the back. And like I explained earlier, it's because the sleeve I'm using is not going to be a full sleeve, it's a cup sleeve, and it's going to stop halfway. So if you are doing a full sleeve, you can just maintain the armhole measurement. So now guys, let me explain why I used 19 inches for the waistline, okay, of this instead of 18 inches. So the waistline of the client I'm working with is actually 18 inches, but I came down by 1 inch from that, okay, and I used 19 inches for her waistline, and that's because I want it to have that hourglass figure. Okay, so if your waistline is, let's say if your waistline is 17, you use 18 inches, okay, for the front. It's going to give you that hourglass figure. I'm going to be putting that on the screen so you can see what I'm talking about. So on the side of corset blouse or bustiers, it's advisable to do that to give you that curvy look. Okay, so when your curve starts just before your hip bone, it presses your waist inside, and then it gives that snatched effect and makes your hip to appear fuller. So I recently observed that, and I thought to share with you guys. And again, secondly, if you want to make blouses that have stylish waistlines or hemlines, please make sure that you join your pieces before you cut out your style on the hemline. Okay, it's very important, because if you don't do that, you might end up finding it very difficult to join your pieces together. When adding a zipper to your back, please do not forget to go in on the waistline on the zipper allowance by half of an inch, as we usually do on the channel. And also please do not forget to add your sewing allowances. Okay, you add your joining allowances of half inch on the pieces, and then on the side piece make sure to add your joining allowance as well, as we did not add that while cutting the pattern. Okay, so please add your sewing allowances to both the front and the back piece. And also guys, please do not forget to subscribe if you haven't, and also please do not forget to turn on your notification bell to get notified each time I post a new video. And also please do not forget to like this video if you found it helpful, and also drop your questions in the comments, because like I said, I'll be there to reply to all your questions. And also please do not forget to watch the sewing video, as it will be dropping after this one, and it's going to be having the tutorial where I cut the waistline. Okay, so do not skip that. Please do well to watch it as well. Thank you so much for stopping by. See you in my next one.